My parents and my sister and me are from St. Petersburg, Russia. My grandma was born in Ukraine. My other grandma, I think they lived in eastern parts of Russia, but I'm not sure where. My parents were mostly friends with Jews, but there wasn't a Jewish community because it was a city. But mostly Jews tended to hang out with Jews. I felt like I didn't want to be Jewish. My mom has this story. I don't remember this, but she tells the story how one time came home crying, and I was like, I don't want to be Jewish. And my parents said, well, you're going to have to find new parents then. There would always be something that would come up, my friend Kolya, who was a little boy who lived in the neighborhood across the street from our house. And, one day he asked, he said, is it true that you're Jewish? And I tried to deny it, Mm-hmm. So it would come up eventually somehow, kids would ask. In Russia, Jews weren't good people, and kids were the first to know. In Russia, if you're a Jew, people just know that you are from your last name, from your hair. A Semitic nose, that probably comes from Middle Eastern roots. Mm-hmm. There's also this characteristic, a lot of Jews have a lisp in Russian. Mm-hmm. It's not a lisp, it's they pronounce the R differently. So there are different physical features and also the nose. My dad's brother looks very Jewish, and so does my dad. Mm-hmm. My mom, not as much. In Russian, it's called nationality, and that's what we thought of it as, nationality. And even in the passport, there's a line number 5, which is your nationality, and you have to fill it out. And you have to, people know your nationality, when you apply for school or you apply, even me as a kid to go to school, you had to declare your nationality. Mm-hmm. So the identity is nationality. Mm-hmm. Russian is a weird connotation for Russian Jews because we're not Russian. In Russia, a Jew would never say, I'm Russian. Because saying Russian means you're a Russian, you're not a Jew. Mm-hmm. So even here, I often have to clarify to people, I'm not Russian, I'm a Jew. Yeah. A Russian Jew. Yeah. But here, people don't really, know the distinction. Right. When you meet Russians, and Russian Jews, you know right away, who's a Jew and who's not. And you kind of, have a relationship based on that. Mm-hmm. The communist rhetoric is that communists are not racist, but there is racism towards Asians or gypsies. And there's racism against Jews, but it's not called racism. We called it anti-semitism. And to me, it's just semantics. What's the difference? People would determine that I was a Jew based on in part on the way I looked and the way my name was. And people didn't like Jews. They would say, go back to Israel. We had never been to Israel, but they would say, that was a common insult was oh, you're trying to get ahead in line, go back to Israel. And my mom's favorite response was I'm trying to go back. I'm trying.
Was she really trying, or was that just a lie?
She always hated being in Russia, and she's pretty feisty, so she would never put up with people. So my mom would come home and be pissed often, because she got in some fight with somebody.
Did you feel or now that you look back, do you feel like you were white when you got here?
I never thought about it. I mean, I was only 11. I never thought about black and white. I just thought that there were people, who didn't look like me, but I didn't think of myself as white, or I didn't think of myself as not white. I think I'm white. I mean, I look white. I think that there are some Jews that look more like Jews, but I think most Americans, at least on the West Coast, or in Seattle, don't really, I'm often surprised when I say, oh yeah, he's such a Jew, to a non-Jew. Yeah. And they're really? They don't, I don't know if they're just faking it or if they really don't know, but I'm often surprised that people don't pick up on that because I'm so used to picking up on that, and I think everyone else is, and I expect, I guess, in Russia, people are really good at reading you as a Jew. To me, if you got on the bus and non-Jews didn't know you were a Jew, they just thought you were a white person, then you're a white person. Yeah. Because for the most part, being white to me is just not being prejudiced because of my skin color. Right. Or feeling prejudiced. Right. White to me means you just have no issues with your appearance. Right. and black is like you have all the issues with your appearance.
Right.
And a Jew's kind of more marginal, like sometimes we pass and sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
So we're like, you know, we can get away with it, but not always.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say that we're a person of color or
Right.
we're white. Like, I always hate filling out the white box because I don't want to be called white. Like, I feel like even though I didn't experience all the, like, anti-Semitism in Russia, I was there long enough, and also my parents did, and I feel like we didn't come to America to be white. We came here to be Jews
Mm-hmm.
and to be proud of it. I
Yeah.
don't want to assimilate.
Right.
I just want to be able to be myself.
Right.
So that's why I hate filling out the white thing. Not because I don't want to be white, but I just don't want to be forced to be white. But then there's nothing else I can select from, you know, because everything else is not me either.
Yeah.
So I usually, if there's a blank space, I just write it in Jewish, which I'm sure doesn't make any sense to anybody else but me. But
Yeah.
when I become friends with somebody who's not white, they often explain me being cool or like understanding certain things about racism
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a Jew. Like they'll say, "Oh, you get it because you're a Jew."
Do you feel like that's true? Largely.
Well, I feel like, yeah, I mean, I definitely have had the experience where I can relate, like especially the Russian
Mm-hmm.
anti-Semitism. I feel like I've had experiences where, I mean, when I was a kid in camp, I really did look very different compared to Russians, because Russians are very Aryan.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was a kid, I had like really curly hair and I was tan, and when I think I must have been 4 or 5, and there was this scene that like stuck in my memory is the kids were teasing me and they were calling me Negro.
Mm-hmm.
In Russian, it's Negritos. And they were just saying, "Oh, here comes the Negro." And I was just like totally scared of being seen by them because they would always call me that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how different like Jews looked in Russia. So I feel like I do understand that experience
Right.
because of that.
Right.
I did think it was because I was Jew. That's why I didn't want to have curly black hair.
Mm-hmm.
But it was basically a similar experience to what it would be like, I think, if you were any other race
Right.
that wasn't white.
Right. It was just like marking you as not Russian and not part of the group.
Yeah, and that was a big reason why I didn't want to be a Jew, because I didn't want to be different. I wanted to have blonde hair till I was like 15 or something.